So example number three emerged from an insight that we had in 2014. In 2014, Google came out and said, we're going to rank content that does one of two things. It either answers a question or it helps somebody complete a task. And that really opened our eyes, right? Because of this concept of micro moments and the fact that customers are going to have many, many, many small touch points throughout their journey with your brand, right? From identifying their own need, feeling an urge to evaluate products, all the way through to purchase, right? Or to prescription and to fulfilling that prescription and adherence. And so we sat down and we took a look at one of our brands' performance in this particular regard, right? We had approximately 50,000 verbatim searches that were made for this brand. And we took a look at all the ones that were a question. And after analyzing that, so we looked at, I think, 50,000 rows of data. We identified 1,700 questions. And we found that there were about 250 questions that were relevant that the brand could answer. And when we dug into that, we analyzed 175 of them. So we went into the search results. We looked to see if the brand was ranking there and whether or not the brand answered the question that the user asked. And what we discovered was that while the brand displayed content approximately 116 times out of the 174, 104 of them didn't answer the question that the user actually asked. And that there were only 4 instances where the brand answered the question that the user asked. Now, the answer may have existed somewhere on the brand's website, but we know that users only click 1 to 2 links on a website or 1 to 2 pages. They visit 1 to 2 pages, and so quite frequently the user might not even get to the answer. And we stood back and we were really surprised, right? This was a pretty huge insight for us because it meant we weren't really identifying what the users were looking for. And we went out, we built a content strategy to address it, and we're starting to collect data on its effectiveness. Then we took the same approach a year later to another brand, except that brand had 250,000 records that we had to sort through. And the first time we did the analysis on 50,000 records, it took us about 80 hours. We realized there was no way to do the analysis on 250,000 records in a cost-effective way. So we asked ourselves, like, what if we could build a tool? What if we could use machine learning and artificial intelligence to analyze this data more rapidly, find all the questions, group up all the different types of questions, and then go out and identify whether or not the brand is answering them online? And what we did was, out of that question, we sat down and started to identify, are there algorithms in the marketplace available today that we can tap into and train to do this work? And we found a couple. So we found, Word2Vec, we found Retina.io from Cortico.io. No, we found the Retina API from Cortico.io, and we started to build software around this and build a solution around this. And the innovation was that at the end, after we built the tool and started using it, we could process approximately 250,000 rows of data in just a couple of minutes and find the same insights that took us upwards of 80 hours, person hours, to do before. And that's a pretty huge innovation, right? What the result there is that we can ask many, many more questions of the data. We can interrogate it many, many more times in the same amount of time, human person billable time, that we could have just to answer one question before. And as we did this, it sort of unlocked other hidden insights in the data, right? Really weak but very important signals in the data. And so you find, searches in foreign languages. So then we take our, the latent semantic analysis engine that we built, and then we chain it to a translation engine and a language classifier. And then we look at what results come out of that. And so, that process, all 3 examples that I shared today, came from sort of this curiosity, right? What if we could solve this really big, hairy idea? What if we could take technology, accelerate the way we do business so that we could focus on solving the business problem, right? Instead of focus on doing human analysis or sort of trying to piece together attribution. And the rewards are sort of manifold, right? Because not only do our clients get better product and do their customers get better experiences because we're able to do things that don't generally scale. Like we can personalize content for people. But the team inside Arteric gets to explore and be creative and be thoughtful and work with new and interesting technologies, which keeps them engaged. And so, you know, the sort of the sum of this, right? And it's a really long take, but the sum of this is that the things that lead to innovation in healthcare marketing and certainly at Arteric is, you know, curiosity, right? We really are curious about what we're doing, and this really deep need to itch our own scratch. I mean, to scratch our own itch, right? Like this need, like, oh yeah, can we solve that problem? And it's been really exciting, and we've been doing it this way now since 1999 across a broad spectrum of industries, and it's what gets me to come to work in the morning. Every day I kind of wake up and I think, wow, like what are we going to get to solve today? Like what big hairy problem can we fix today? And that's super rewarding, and I'm grateful for it. So there's your answer.